Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a whole new episode of Full Steam Ahead. I'm your host, Zoe, with my co-host on the other side, Cantu. How we doing today?
Good, good. We have a special guest today.
We do got a special guest. Episode 159, we're going to title it. MLB Central host Robert Flores joins this show. Houstonian, U of H grad. I'd say MLB The Show legend, too, at this point. Robert,
Yeah.
welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be back, guys. How are you?
Good, good, good.
Good,
How's
good.
that New York? How's that New York weather going for you?
I mean, it's just basically degrees of suck, when you're in the weather, when you're in the Northeast, as far as the weather concerns, at this time of year. But for the most part, it's been okay. We've certainly have experienced, winters that are, rougher in the past, but it's not over. So I don't want to be, I don't want to be counting my chickens before they're hatched.
Gotcha.
And before
Well, we
we
got to.
had you here,
Oh, go
and
ahead, Angel. Go ahead.
before we had you here the first time, we didn't have that video intro. How did you like that?
I like that. That was nicely done. It was getting me hyped for baseball season, for another season of Astros baseball. So that was very, very well done. Good job.
Yes, sir. Baseball season is back, like you said. Spring training is here. Obviously, you might be headed to MLB Central as the host, like always.
Yeah.
But real quick, we'll have the predictions, expectations of the Astros coming into this season.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit of spring training. But before we get started, how was your offseason like? I mean, obviously, you're not hosting MLB Central. I mean, I think you're still doing a little bit of work with MLB Network. But how's
Yeah.
been the offseason like for you?
Well, I mean, MLB Network still does pretty much a full slate of shows in the off season. It's, Hot Stove is the off season morning show, and then you still have MLB Tonight, and so we still have and plus we have various countdown shows, top 100 prospects, top 100 players, top 10 right now, where we rank the various players at each position. So we've got a full slate of programming. However, at the same time, it is not quite as busy as as you would expect during the regular season. I think I was telling you earlier before we started, I tend to save my vacation time for after the season's over. So it's a good time to just kind of recharge the batteries and get ready for the upcoming season.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, have you been obviously? Like I said, you're a big MLB The Show guy. I mean, did you see the cover? What are your thoughts of what what are you looking forward to for this new coming, I guess, season of the game?
Well, I like the choice of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as the cover athlete. I know for a fact that he is a very serious player. He takes the game. He plays the game a lot. He enjoys playing it. So he takes it. It's not like he's some Johnny come lately with the game. So I think that's important to have a cover athlete that is familiar with the game, is familiar with the community. So I think it was a great choice. So I'm just looking forward to it. I can't wait for next March or for next month, excuse me, when it comes out. So I was just playing it today, playing it on my Twitch channel. So I'm ready.
Have you played against Vladimir Guerrero?
What's that?
Have you played against Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
No, I haven't. I was thinking about this the other day. I've played against Amir Garrett, Josh Hader, Blake Snell, and Brett Phillips. I know, I think I've beaten all those guys except Blake Snell. Blake Snell beat me pretty badly. In fact, I'm sure people can find it on YouTube because that's where we posted it originally. When I played Blake Snell, he used himself. He had virtual Blake Snell, in his lineup, and he took me deep as Blake Snell, the pitcher. His virtual self, Blake Snell, went deep off Corey Kluber. So that was pretty interesting.
That had to be the road to the show player right there, because obviously you get your attributes when you get better, when you obviously with the singles, and
Well, I think the format that we were playing when I played Blake, I think we were playing Diamond Dynasty. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it was various players, but he made sure to have himself in his lineup. Oh, you know who else beat me really badly? was Lucas Giolito, now with the Boston Red Sox. Now he used himself as well, but what Sony San Diego does, what MLB The Show does, is if they know of a player, a major leaguer, or I know that there's a handful of minor leaguers that fit this description as well. They will gift those guys 99 versions of themselves. So when I played Lucas Giolito, he used a souped up 99 version of himself, and he beat me pretty bad. So.
Well, right now, I mean, Blake Snell is unsigned. So
yeah,
it's interesting that he's still unsigned. All these superstar players, I'd say Cody Bellinger, another one, Jordan Montgomery,
Matt Chapman.
Matt Chapman. I mean, they got their rights, but it's interesting because it's already leading into spring training, and none of these guys are signed. Yeah,
it is. Obviously, it's not what you want. I don't think either party wants that, be it the players or their prospective teams or the teams that they're negotiating with. But, unfortunately, that's just the business of it. They've earned the right to be free agents. They've earned the right to get to maximize their value and get the deal that they and their representation feel is just and fair. It makes me think about, the last time we had this instance, I immediately go back to 2019 when Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, I know they signed pretty late, not late, but spring training had already started. In fact, I think as we said, it was this time back in 2019, 5 years ago, I think, that Manny Machado signed his deal with the Padres. And then a week later, it was Bryce Harper. So, it is something, like I said, it bears watching. I'm always interested to know the players that sign late, how does it affect them? Because, it is spring training, and spring training's long. I understand that. And they're all working out, and they're all in great shape. But it's different. I feel like it's different for whatever reason. So I think a lot of these guys that sign late, sometimes they're playing catch up as soon as they hit the ground running.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially for pitchers, because they have to get familiar with their catchers, with their pitching coaches, see the techniques. But I think for hitters, like a prime example will be Yordan Alvarez last year, missing a lot of spring training, just coming into the opening day, firing, ready to go.
Yeah, and like I know the commissioner was asked about this scenario and these cases last week, and I think he had hinted that he had, during the last collective bargaining agreement, I believe the owners had floated the idea of imposing some sort of deadline to have, to really. I can see it from the owner's perspective, which is, hey, let's see if we can get some, a constant flow of news throughout the throughout the off season, throughout the hot stove season, to really kind of whet the appetite of baseball fans everywhere. At the same time, I understand the players' point of view, and their representation is, we don't want to be restricted to any kind of deadline. We want to be able to hold out, quote unquote, and be able to get the best deal possible. So I can see it from both sides. But ultimately, everyone's going to get signed. Matt Chapman's going to find a team. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger. There's going to be a lot of guys that sign, I imagine, here in the next week and a half.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that's going to happen soon. Before we get into the Astros, perspective of things like that with the offseason, I mean, is there a team that you think that kind of won the offseason, making, certain type of moves, certain type of signings? What team comes to your mind that you think, man, they did a great job this offseason?
Well, I mean, look, it's low hanging fruit, but what the Los Angeles Dodgers did, I mean, they signed everybody. Obviously, leading it off with Shohei Ohtani. I was hosting MLB Tonight, and we had a particular segment talking about Tyler Glasnow. And for a split second, I forgot that they acquired Tyler Glasnow. That's how many high-profile players they acquired in the offseason. They are the clear favorite. But I'm not ready to say that, it's going to be an easy road to the World Series or to the World Series championship. I mean, just looking in the National League, you got the Philadelphia Phillies, and of course you got the Atlanta Braves. So those right there are two teams that I think could definitely throw a wrench into what the Los Angeles Dodgers hope to do this offseason, and that's win a title.
Yeah, most definitely. So yeah, let's talk about the Astros offseason as well. I mean, let's start off. Joe Espada hires the new manager. Astros traded for Dylan Coleman and signed Victor Caratini in the winter meetings. And then, kind of put it the cherry on top, they signed 5-time All-Star Josh Hader.
Right.
So give me your thoughts on the Astros moves this past offseason. What do you think? Did they kind of make themselves a little bit better than last year, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think on paper, I think that they have made themselves better. I love the trio in the back end of the bullpen of Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley, and Josh Hader. I think that they are still a little top heavy, if you will, in the bullpen. Those three guys can't pitch every day. So I think they need to use this time to find some depth, develop some depth in that bullpen. Remember, they've lost Ryan Stanek, they lost Hector Neris, Phil Maton. So those are a lot of innings that they no longer have that they're going to have to replace. Forrest Whitley, the highly touted forever prospect, I believe that they're going to look at him as a bullpen piece. As far as the rotation goes, they do have a surplus of starters, but it's surplus with an asterisk because you have Luis Garcia and Lance McCullers both coming off injuries, and neither one of them are going to start the season on the main roster. I imagine they'll probably start the season on the injured list, but they're hopeful that they will return sometime in the summer. So, yes, the Astros are better, but I still think that there's some question marks. In fact, I still think that this is a pivotal season for this franchise. In a lot of ways, this season or this franchise is at a crossroads, and I'm interested to see what happens in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because besides the Josh Hader signing, it was a pretty quiet offseason for the Astros, and that's because they understand they were just one game away from the World Series, so they trust their squad. So I agree with you that they're in a crossroads because they're like, we have a good squad, but we see guys that are coming of age. We might lose Bregman. Kyle Tucker's, still in contract negotiations as well. So based on that, that we talked about re-signing Altuve, Josh Hader, how do you think the Astros fare in returning to the World Series?
It's going to be tough. Obviously, they got the defending world champions, Texas Rangers, in their own division. The Mariners are very good. The Angels, it feels like they're in a period of transition. The Oakland A's are definitely rebuilding. But, and as far as the American League as a whole, I think the New York Yankees are going to be really, really good. Offensively, they're going to smash the baseball. I think Juan Soto is going to have a huge year. I think Juan Soto is going to contend for an American League MVP. So it's not going to be easy for the Astros. They're going to have to make sure there's a couple of X factors for me for this Astros team. One of them is Jeremy Pena, and the other is Christian Javier. Both of whom I think it's fair to say, I don't want to say took a step back, but they didn't perform at the levels that we saw in 2022, certainly in the postseason of 2022. So it's going to be difficult, but I would be shocked if the Astros weren't somehow in the mix in the American League. Yeah,
again, that division is going to be between the Mariners, Rangers, and Astros, like you said, and it came down to the wire last year as well. Literally last game of the season or second to last game of the season. And I agree with you with the X factors. Another X factor, I believe, is Rafael Montero. Now you're saying that those three guys can't pitch every game.
Right.
They did pay Rafael Montero that amount of money, and honestly, I think he underperformed. I think he would admit himself he underperformed.
Yeah, you make a great point. You make a great point. I'm glad you brought up Rafael Montero, because that's definitely an X factor. Because we were talking earlier, that bullpen is, look, you got the three known excellent pitchers: Abreu, Hader, and Presley. I think it wouldn't shock me if Presley has a little bit of a. It's not. He's having to swallow his pride, because he's one of the best postseason closers of his generation. And now the Astros are telling him, hey, man, we got someone here that's going to get the final 3 outs and not you. So look to see if Presley, how he adjusts to that. But Montero has to return to the form of 2022, because there are innings that need to be taken care of. And he is a quality. He has shown in the past that he has the type of stuff that can fill that void. It's just a matter of whether or not he can be consistent and whether or not he can do it.
Yeah, and I think the message around what Denner Brown is saying is they're going to trust their in-house guys like Forrest Whitley and Cesar Martinez. But you're right, like they might need that one extra bullpen arm that you can be like reliable, because there's a bunch of uncertainties as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look,
another
no, go ahead.
No, I'll go to my next question. So you can go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think that, look, everyone's going to look around the trade deadline in July. Everyone's going to be looking for the same thing: bullpen pieces and, maybe an impact bat. So I imagine the Astros will be no different. I'm interested to see what this offense looks like. I think Alex Bregman's going to have a really big year. I think he is the guy. He is a guy that plays best when he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he sees that Jose Altuve got an extension, and I know that in his heart of hearts he would love to get the same, but I don't know if I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know, if the Astros can figure out a way to make it work as far as staying under the luxury tax. They've already gone into the first threshold of the luxury tax thanks to the Josh Hader signing. That's why I said this is going to be such an interesting season for this franchise, because in a lot of ways they are at the crossroads.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Well, good song too. Good song.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on my next question, Alex Bregman, and I agree with you 100%. I think he will have a great season. Might even be close to the 2019 season he had.
Yeah.
Just because it's a contract year, and I'm sure he's trying to get every single penny he can.
Yeah.
And you're right. He saw Jose Altuve get signed, and I know he loves Houston. He's been open about that, but he also wants his due, right? He also wants to get, and I see a prediction of maybe, I'd say over $200 million for Bregman. I see maybe he's going to be 30 this season, so maybe a 6-year, $200 million. So how confident are you that the Astros will be able to match that or get a deal done with Bregman?
I mean, look, this is just me speculating, but why don't we take a look? Why don't we kind of talk and group the 3 players that are at the forefront of everyone's mind when it comes to extension? And who are we talking about? Bregman, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez.
Yeah.
This is me just reading the tea leaves and speculating. I think Tucker is the only one that they re-sign.
Absolutely.
My guess is Alex Bregman does not re-sign, and he's definitely going to free agency. He's a Scott Boras client, and Scott Boras wants to take his clients to free agency. So that's happening. Yes, Jose Altuve is also a Scott Boras client, but Jose Altuve is a special case. Mm-hmm. He's a legacy player for this franchise. And so too is Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is going to go down as one of the greatest players in the history of the franchise. Framber Valdez, like I said, my guess is that they only find a way to re-sign Tucker. But I think I could be wrong.
I think what affected Framber Valdez was that second half of the season last year. I think if he was consistent enough, you could even make the argument that
he's got a lot to prove this year too.
Yeah. because like the way he fell off, and I think it might be, again, I'm just speculating here too. Because after he was told he was not going to pitch at the All-Star game, it's just like I think he kind of got upset with that. I'm not sure again, right? But then after that, it's just like,
maybe you don't know. No, I'm interested to see what he looks like this season. I know all the long hair is gone and he's got the short cut, and but look, when he is right, he's an ace. Yeah. And for the Astros need for him to return to that form, because if he's performing like we've seen him in the past at his best, it takes the pressure off Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander, obviously, he's going to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the all-time greats. He's still a very, very good pitcher, but he's also 41 years old. So Framber Valdez needs to step up. Hunter Brown, I think, also needs to take that next step. Last year it was a little bumpy, and that's something you would expect. He's still a very young player. So I think those two guys for me need to find a way to take that next step. Framber's done it before. He needs to return to that form, and Hunter Brown needs to find that consistency and really take that next step, because I think he has the ability to be a number 2 starter on a very, very good team.
And JP France as well. I think he had a little fatigue later on.
JP France was very good last year.
So yeah, speaking even with the JP France and the JV news, because obviously if you've kept up to date what's been happening with Astros spring training, JV had a little hiccup in his throwing session. Obviously, JP France is dealing with some right shoulder inflammation as well. If these, I don't think they're not even really injuries, but these little minor setbacks, do you think if this continues to go into the season, do you think the Astros maybe look into signing a veteran, starting pitcher? For instance, Michael Lorenzen's still out there. He could maybe look at a 1 to 2 year contract. He had a great season last year, but also with the guys in-house, like Angel was saying, the Astros do have a starting pitcher in the AAA farm system right now with Spencer Arrighetti. What do you think if, a scenario happens like that?
I think if the Astros had their druthers, they would not sign anyone, because, as I said, they are already in the first tier of the luxury tax. But if you set that aside, and that's a big if, I would love someone like Michael Lorenzen for this team for a couple of reasons. One, we know he can be an effective starter, and two, he's also shown the ability to come out of the bullpen. So again, I feel like you can kind of help two areas with the same guy. You can give him a start. You can put him as part of a 6-man, 7-man rotation. That gives Justin Verlander even more rest. Justin Verlander pitched very well in 2022 when the Astros used a 6-man rotation for a good portion of the season. But also with that bullpen that we talked about. Remember, no Kendall Graveman this year. That's a big loss. And I think that was part of the impetus of why they signed Josh Hader. So I think someone like Michael Lorenzen would be excellent. I do think if they're not going to sign another veteran starter, I think they are a little bit shy in the bullpen. Someone in that, it's almost like a veteran to get to Abreu, Presley, and Hader. Someone that can come in a pinch, maybe even in this when one of those guys needs a night off. Maybe Montero returns to being that guy. But I do think that maybe a veteran arm wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for this bullpen.
And the Astros have like a surplus of pitchers that are comfortable in the bullpen and a starter. You got Urquidy did it, JP France did it, Ronel Blanco, Brandon Bielak too. So they got a few guys that can kind of like fill in those voids while
you need so much pitching to get through the season. I can recall Brandon Bielak saving this team and saving this rotation a couple of times. I felt that there were weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even longer, where JP France was the most consistent starter that the Astros had. You need so much pitching to get through the season. I think that they need to find all the quality arms that they can, and that's what every team tries to do.
Yeah, and then speaking real quick with the manager, I mean, Joe Espada, like I said, the Astros had signed him. he had mentioned to the media today about like playing everyday players in the beginning of the spring training games, meaning like the primary starters. Every coach coaches differently. Dusty Baker had a different way. AJ
Yeah.
Hitch had a different way. To me, I think Dusty and Joe have different coaching philosophies. So, tell me, what do you expect from Espada coming into his first year as the Astros manager?
I think that it helps that he has a familiarity with the franchise and the players and vice versa. You're right. It is going to be an adjustment period. Dusty Baker is one of the greatest managers in the history of the game. He's going to the Hall of Fame. And he came and arrived at this franchise when they sorely needed a reset, someone respected within the game and at every clubhouse, at every major league stadium. And he arrived in less than ideal circumstances and found a way to continue this franchise's run of success. But Joe Espada's got to find his own voice, his own way. He's going to have growing pains as well. But I think it helps him that in this new role, it's not a new place. He knows the players, he knows the organization, he knows the city, the fans, et cetera, all of it. So I'm expecting him to have success. And like I said, I would be shocked if the Astros weren't in the mix for the division title, for the playoffs, and making a deep run into the postseason. But make no mistake, it's going to be of all the seasons in this run. I think 2024 is going to be the most challenging year that the Astros have had.
I believe that as well. Like especially because they have some veteran guys like Jose Abreu, which are trying to find their swing. A lot of injuries that are just still rehabbing. So knowing that information, which young player do you think will have the most impact this season for the Astros?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe it is Forrest Whitley. I've been saying this for the past couple of seasons. They need him. Whether I thought it was going to be in the rotation, but appears now they're going to try him in the bullpen. At least that's the last thing that I read or heard. He could be an X factor. I think that kid that they acquired from the Angels, Trey Cabbage. I saw him a couple of times last year, and he's got some tools. He's got a nice swing. He can run. He can play the outfield. He can play the infield. Obviously, there's some things in his game that he needs to refine. There's a lot of swing and miss. But if they can find a way for him to be a contributor, he doesn't need to be a cornerstone. Obviously, he's not going to be a cornerstone. Your cornerstones, Jordan, Tucker, Bregman, Altuve. So, I mean, that's your core. That's your core four right there. And everyone else has to kind of find their way. What can Mauricio Dubon? Can he return? Can he put together the kind of season that he had last year? Can Chance McCormick put together the kind of season that he had last year? Can Jake Myers figure it out at the plate? Those for me are some of the question marks that I have about this team.
And the thing with Trey Cabbage is he plays first base, and honestly, I think him and John Singleton are kind of the same offensively, where they can hit the ball a long way, but those strikeouts are a big problem. But I think what gives Trey Cabbage a little advantage is that he can play the outfield, like you said, and I think he has a little more compact swing than John Singleton as well. So I think that can,
look, I'd root for John Singleton, so I hope he can find a way to figure it out. I mean, when he's right, he's a very interesting weapon, whether it be as a bench bat, maybe a spot starter at first base, DH, that kind of thing. So you just want as many good players as possible. And hopefully John Singleton, like I said, hopefully he can figure it out consistently, because I root for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, add on to that real quick. I mean, Dana Brown did mention that he's not opposed to signing a guy that's a left-handed hitter that has some speed. And sure enough, I mean, I think he got a good one with Trey Cabbage, personally, in my opinion, because like Angel had mentioned, and y'all had mentioned, I mean, he played the outfield, he'll play the infield. He does have some sneaky speed. He could hit the ball the other way. So I think he's kind of not a 5-tool player, but he has the potential, I would say, to become a 5-tool guy.
Yeah, listen, moving forward, at least in the short term, the Astros don't figure to have any high draft picks. So they're not going to be getting these top 100 prospects because they're not going to be picking at the top of the draft unless something unbelievable happens and they just go down the tubes and are, have an awful season. But with that being said, they've got to find a way to develop players that maybe aren't completely finished products. Find some diamonds in the rough, that sort of thing. Find a way to get good athletes, to get talent into their organization, and then use their coaching staff and all that infrastructure that they've built to find a way to develop those players.
Yeah, definitely. Because, speaking of developing players, Yainer Diaz is going to be in his second year. I think teams are going to start having, kind of a number on him because of last year's numbers. He kind of whipped on a lot of pitches, but this is your second year. There's going to be a full season for him being the Astros everyday catcher. I think you could see some development in him, and then even including Pena, which I'll talk a little bit here and get your thoughts in a minute, that the development system here with, the Astros organization is pretty well.
Yeah, I think you can see a little bit of a regression from Yainer Diaz, just because, as you said, he's going to be playing just about every day. Having Victor Caratini, a veteran behind him, I think that's an excellent move. He's also a switch hitting catcher, which I love. But Yainer Diaz, listen, he has shown that he has the ability to have an impact at the plate. And that's something that this Astros team, even, during this great run of success, they haven't really had. Who's been why am I drawing a blank? Who's been their best hitting catcher? Brian McCann. Okay. He started, he came over in 17, had some, he definitely was a very effective hitter. After that, it was Robinson Chirinos. And then you had Martin Maldonado, which we know he's a glove first catcher. And, he's not really giving you much offense. Yainer Diaz, he's a different story. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he can follow up 2024 after a very good 2023.
Yeah, he was anxious too. And when he talked to the media, he said anxious. He was ready to get after spring training. He was ready to work with these pitchers. You've already seen a video of him working with Josh Hader, and Josh Hader brought him, with him and told him what location he liked, what pitches he would like to throw in these type of situations. So it's a great sign to see him already working with not just the original Astros pitching staff, but new guys coming in on this organization.
And I don't think the Astros have had a good hitting catcher besides like McCann, right? Since 2009, when it was Ivan Rodriguez.
Yeah.
That was
long time.
Because after that, you have Quintero, Castro, McCann, Sassy, Chirinos, Maldonado.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, Brian McCann was an excellent hitter. So it's been a while. Robinson Chirinos had his moments, but no, they obviously would love to get some consistent production from that spot.
Yeah, and then the last player that you had mentioned, you even said it last year. I remember the X factor in the midseason after the All-Star break. You said Jeremy Pena has to find a way to get going. Well, it looks like it's your same X factor for this coming year, being Jeremy Pena, obviously being his third year, in the league. But he talked about in the offseason what he was trying to get better at, what was his goal. He said being more consistently at the plate, hitting better in the offseason. And sure enough, I think he did that on the first, day of full squad workouts. You've seen the bat is more quiet. The bat's rested on his shoulders. He's not doing something. I even got my bat if we need to demonstrate real quick. He's not doing, sorry about that. He's not doing, this little wag that he usually does. Yep. Now it's kind of like on the shoulder. But he did stay. He still has a little wag at the end when he loads up. So I wanted to ask you, in your perspective, getting something like that going, do you believe the swing mechanics can change a player's approach when he's up to the plate?
Yes, it definitely can. These batters and hitters have to deal with extremely high velocity. Everyone throws at least 95, sometimes 98, sometimes in excess of 100 miles per hour. So I don't think Jeremy Pena is the dude that we saw in 2022 postseason. That's unfair to expect that. But those were the expectations for him. He was the LCS MVP and the World Series MVP. So Is he that guy consistently? I don't think so. Could he be that guy sometimes? Sure. Could he be more consistent than what he showed last season? Absolutely. So the Astros would love to have him. He's not, well, again, he's not one of those guys that has to carry the team. He just has to, when he's called upon to either move a runner, hit a sac fly, get a base knock, just be yourself. I think that's definitely something that can go a long way. He's a very talented kid. He's an excellent fielder, and he's a strong, you can tell he's a strong kid. So hopefully he figured out something in the offseason.
And Mr. Dubon last year mentioned how he would talk to Jordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve when he was, getting some tips from him. That swing that Jeremy Pena has when he's resting his shoulder kind of reminds me like of a Michael Brantley, Jordan Alvarez type of stance a little bit. So that'll be something interesting to look forward to, and maybe ask if that's where he got his little stance from. But just to finish off, I know you have a busy day ahead of you. Just to ask some predictions for the Astros this year. What's who do you think the team MVP would be, and what are they placed in the American League?
I think they lose in the division round. Their MVP will be Alex Bregman.
Wow. Okay.
I'll just kind of go off under the radar a little bit. So most people would say Tucker or Jordan or Altuve. So I'll say Bregman.
The contract here. So.
That's right.
So to add on real quick, who do they lose to in the division?
That's a good one. I'm going to say they lose to the Yankees. The Yankees finally get them. As much as that would, hurt Astro fans. I mean, you just can't keep beating the Yankees. As much as we've all enjoyed that in 15, 17, 19, 22. Did they beat them somewhere between? Did they beat them in 21?
No, 21 they had the Red Sox.
So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
22 was the Yankees.
So, I mean, it's hard to beat a team 5 times in a row in the postseason. So, but like I said, that it's going to be a very, very intriguing season for this franchise.
Absolutely.
Definitely will be. But Robert, we want to thank you again for coming on to the show and talking Astros baseball and your perspective of what's your expectations of the Astros this coming season.
You got it, guys. We'll be MLB Central will be back on the air on opening day. So hope everyone can watch. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you again. And like at the end, on our little ticker below, follow us on Full Steam Ahead on Twitter, TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Instagram. Robert, you want to tell them where they can follow you on X and Twitch?
Yeah, you can find me at Roflo on Twitter, and then you can find me at twitch.tv/RealRoflo on Twitch.
Awesome. Well, everybody, that's the end of our show. We'll talk to you this coming week. And like we said, thank you again, Robert.
You got it.
Thank you.